I want to see the water be released and come down into Los Angeles and throughout the state.
2 new wildfires, more than 10,000 acres.
You're all bought and paid for morons, and may you all rot in hell for all the people you've killed.
During President Trump's first term in office, he signed new biological opinions that allowed more federal water to stream through California. The Biden administration reversed the rule.
Donald Trump drops bad news on Gavin Newsom after a brand new massive fire breaks out in Southern California. And the first LA City Council meeting since the disastrous fires erupts into chaos as protesters demand the mayor's resignation. As always, like the video and subscribe to the channel, but where I want to start is with these brand new fires that have already exploded to over 10,000 acres. Watch.
Welcome back. Strong winds and bone-dry conditions in Southern California helped fuel the flames of 2 new wildfires, the Sepulveda and the Hughes fires, the latter of which grew more than 10,000 acres across the northern Los Angeles community of Castaic since igniting late Wednesday morning. The Sepulveda fire, a lot smaller at only 40 acres, that's burning near a highway in Sherman Oaks, the 405. Meanwhile, fire crews continue to work on containing the Palisades, Eaton, and Clay fires. Both the Palisades and Eaton fires made their marks as some of the most devastating fires in California history, burning dozens of square miles of land. And now, forecasted rain this weekend raises new concerns about possible mudslides and flooding in those areas.
Now, one of those fires, the Sepulveda fires, even though it's small, it's actually right next to me. It's in Sherman Oaks, and I'm in Encino, and they're right next to each other. So yeah, I'm super pissed that despite everything that's happened, the city of LA still isn't bolstering and preparing itself for these things to keep happening. Like, at what point do we just throw our hands up and say, these Democrat politicians are going to let California burn to the ground? A 4,000-acre fire broke out in San Diego right by the Mexican border. And while these fires rage on for probably the same reason the Palisades one did, because nobody has access to any water, Donald Trump is making his way to North Carolina and California today, where he stopped and answered some questions and dropped a stark warning on Gavin Newsom. Watch.
Funding to Los Angeles because of its sanctuary city policy?
I want to see 2 things in Los Angeles: voter ID, so that the people have a chance to vote, and I want to see the water be released and come down into Los Angeles and throughout the state. Those are the 2 things. After that, I will be the greatest president that California has ever seen. I want the water to come down and come down to Los Angeles, and also go out to all the farmland that's barren and dry. You know, they have land that they say is the equivalent of the land in Iowa, which is about as good as there is anywhere on earth. The problem is it's artificial, because they artificially stop the water from going onto the land. So I want 2 things. I want voter ID for the people of California, and they all want it. Right now, you don't have voter ID. People want to have voter identification. You want to have proof of citizenship. Ideally, you have one-day voting, but I just want voter ID as a start, and I want the water to be released, and they're going to get a lot of help from the U.S. Thank you very much.
The thing I love about this move is the absolute masterclass ninja political move by Trump. Any reasonable and objective person would say requiring voter ID and letting the water flow through the state while it's obviously burning up right now are very reasonable and good ideas. So Gavin Newsom's put in the position where, is he going to accept these extremely reasonable requests from Trump in order to save his state? You would expect for your politicians to try to protect their constituents at any cost. But Gavin Newsom's ego is too big, and his ambitions are laughably delusional. So I presume that he's going to reject saving the people of California simply because he wants to make a moral stance. Now, Gavin Newsom was actually interviewed last night before Trump flew in, and a reporter stuns him when she asks him, was it inappropriate in a time of crisis to be making laws trying to Trump-proof your state, and now you need Trump's help? Watch.
Said that it was poor form on your part to establish a special session of the legislature before he even took office to Trump-proof the state, that sent a bad message.
Well, the Trump-proof is someone else's words, not ours. I think it was rather prescient We're already engaged in lawsuits in litigation. He already is assaulted the 14th Amendment as a birthright citizenship. I think there's a likelihood of additional lawsuits as it relates to some of his executive actions, and we didn't have time to wait past his prologue. Not just my administration, which was just 2 years working with the Trump administration. The Brown administration had 2 years working with the Trump administration. Total, there was 122 lawsuits. We didn't initiate those lawsuits. They were in response to actions by the Trump administration. I thought it was important that we prepare for that, and I think by definition that preparedness has put us in a position where we can quickly move with the Department of Justice to assert ourselves against the backdrop of an assault on a lot of hard-earned progress here that goes back to Ronald Reagan.
Two blatant lies coming from his smug face. Number one, of course he said they were Trump-proofing the state. And number two, let's assume you didn't say Trump-proof. What would you call it where you're raising $50 million for the purpose of fighting every single thing Trump does? That's why, if I'm being honest, if the Democrats really want a chance of relating to real people going forward, they need to ditch the idea of using these California and New York elite Democrats and pick somebody from the center of the country who actually speaks like a human. All Gavin Newsom is some more of that Kamala. Let me just say a whole bunch of words. It doesn't matter if they lead to nowhere. It doesn't matter if they fall all over themselves. Just listen to my words as I hypnotize you and confuse you, and hopefully you forgot the question you asked. Now, another reporter asks Gavin Newsom if he's willing to comply with some requests if Trump asks for him, and his answer is, as you'd expect. Watch.
What about some of the concerns about the president saying that there should be limits on the funding for California unless the state does some sort of water?
Well, it's some sort of that is confusing to not just you, but to every expert and everyone that's tried to review it. The State Water Project has nothing to do with the fires here. Nothing. Period. Full stop. It's not he said, she said. This is not just an assertion. It's a foundational fact. And I think it's really important in terms of how we express the reporting here that we deal not just with both sidesism. The State Water Project has nothing to do with water supply as it relates to water suppression for municipal systems. The state reservoirs are at or near record highs. With respect, I think it's incredibly important that people know the truth, because it's very damaging when people believe such misinformation.
Like, this guy is such a liar. Him saying, I don't know what requests he could have made. There's nothing else that could have been done. And I'm going to prove to you guys that that's false in a second as I play this clip from Fox LA, literally disproving that. But then this same guy who has been exposed for lying time and time again by reporters, by the fire chief, by insiders, by fire captains, has the nerve to say that anybody spreading an opposing narrative to his is perpetuating misinformation. Like, it's annoying when a child gets caught in a lie and won't admit that they're wrong. It's even more annoying when the governor of California is doing the same thing. Like, it's convenient for him to say that all the state reservoirs are full, but neglecting that they haven't built any more, even though they've raised $12 billion for it 10 years ago. And it's convenient to leave out that while the state reservoirs were full, a 114 million gallon reservoir in the Palisades right next to the fire was bone dry. So it's like you just can't even believe a word that comes out of this guy's mouth. And just to hammer down the point, watch this Fox News clip that exposes that, yeah, Governor Gavin Newsom can just turn on the water from Northern California. You know why? Because they turned it off.
On his first day in office, President Trump signed an executive order directing his Commerce and Interior secretaries to route more water in Northern California to other parts of the state.
The very day that he got sworn in as president, he took action to help us in the Central Valley. I've been working with President Trump and his team over the past few months, outlining specifics and ways that we can maximize flows.
Local political leaders know food grows where water flows.
We've got over 600,000 acres of farmland out there in West Fresno County, but what do they need? They need water.
During President Trump's first term in office, he signed new biological opinions that allowed more federal water to stream through California. The Biden administration reversed the rules.
And why did the Biden administration turn it off? Because California convinced them that they needed to save a 3-inch fish called the Delta smelt. Another lie Gavin Newsom said when he stated the Delta smelt had nothing to do with this. Again, I say this all the time. The excuse that the water system just wasn't capable of handling this kind of disaster is not acceptable. All the tax money California and the city of Los Angeles has that they've spent on stupid, nonsensical, wasteful projects they could have used to revolutionize their water management system. Saving $23 billion on paying for illegal immigrants and spending that money to make sure that your city never burns to the ground seems like a decision that a government with common sense would have made. And because nobody has any sense, this most recent LA City Council meeting literally exploded into madness when a protester got the mic and literally laid into the city council and Mayor Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom in the most disrespectful way. Watch.
Everything I'm going to say here out is mostly not my opinion. It's stayed from the mouths of LAFD personnel. Crowley and Terrasas both ignored staffing issues. Crowley had 3 budgeting periods to demand adequate funding for apparatus, including repairs, equipment, and staffing. Failed to get it. Crowley should have been screaming at the public since assuming office in 2022 about potential lethal catastrophe looming due to underfunding resourcing of LAFD. Did nothing because she's an appointed lapdog. Last fiscal year, LAFD only had 4 months in the black, then 8 months of vendors holding debt and getting paid after the approval of a new budget. Every new budget mostly covers debts from previous year. There is no funding for LAFD. I'm speaking to the community, the 4 million Angelinos who are served by this joke of a city council. You need to understand, no frickin' money for LAFD. You all need to resign, especially the loathsome neoliberal joke of a mayor. Crowley needs to resign for having done nothing because she's an appointed lapdog. I mean, she's just a run-of-the-mill bureaucrat. She's not uniquely evil, but she needs to resign. It needs to be an elected position. You're all bought and paid for morons, and may you all rot in hell for all the people you've killed.
And that is exactly why I know California will be going red, because Gavin Newsom controlling the narrative that there was nothing anybody could have done worked for about 8 hours until expose after expose came out, proving it was nothing but mismanagement and incompetence from the highest to lowest levels. It was all fun being woke and progressive and inclusive until the city burnt to the ground. Now they're wanting some serious leadership. And that's not me just speculating. That's even recently been happening. A wealthy city down in Orange County, which is just south of Los Angeles County, voted unanimously to remove their sanctuary city status after being fed up of Gavin Newsom's immigration policy.
Leaders in one California city are fed up with the state's immigration policies, and they're taking things into their own hands. The city council in Huntington Beach declaring itself a non-sanctuary city. The resolution passing this week in a unanimous 7-0 vote. The mayor there, Pat Burns, introducing the legislation for illegal immigration with an effort to prevent crime. And it seeks to counter some of the governor's policies in California while aligning with the Trump administration's tougher immigration agenda. The move also comes as the federal government initiates the early phases of these mass deportations across the country. The U.S. currently has about 14 million undocumented immigrants. The mayor in Huntington says the new policy is common sense. It supports law enforcement and advances public safety in that city, something he says the governor is not doing.
Orange County's always been more conservative, but to unanimously vote to remove your sanctuary city status right now shows a direct displeasure and revolt with the current administration. So let's see what Gavin Newsom does. Will he save his people? Will he stop obstructing the will of the people? Or will his ego get in the way? But let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Turn on those notification bells so you guys never miss a video. And I will see you in the next one.